Joel Klatt is with us. He joins us each week on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline, courtesy of MyBookie.ag. That's MyBookie.ag. Don't forget code NEXTROUND when you go there. What is up, Klatt? How are you?
Good, man. How are you guys doing? Wild weekend, right?
Yeah. Before we get to Oklahoma, obviously our well wishes go out to Gus, and everybody's saying Gus is going to be okay. I know you kind of gave an update. Gus Johnson, if you didn't see it, had to bow out at halftime, but you had to take over. I mean, that's pretty wild, right? I know you don't really prepare for that.
I mean, I listen. I've never done play-by-play in my life. Maybe like in my head, but yeah, that was it. That was interesting, and we were, I guess, fortunate because of the style of game, and obviously Brady and the guys are there, and Coach Meyer is there, and so it kind of in a weird way in the fourth quarter it was almost better to just have a big overarching conversation about those programs and where they're at. But yeah, Gus is doing great, and it just happens, man. We're human, and he's going to be fine. He's going to be raring to go this week when we're up in Michigan. But yeah, that was. Let's just say I didn't wake up thinking to myself like, "Hey, I'm going to call the second half."
Yeah, Gus, why don't you take a long lunch? I'm going to do second half.
Hey, you good? You good? You're fine. Don't worry about it.
Very baseball-like. For the middle innings, now I turn it over to Joel Klatt.
That's right.
Hi, everybody. That's pretty good. It's really good. I never thought we would live to see a time where Nebraska has now lost 19 consecutive games to top 25 programs. And it looks, I was completely wrong. I said going into this year, this is probably Scott Frost's best roster, probably the best team he's got. And I think I was completely wrong, Joel. And on the other side, Oklahoma seems to be getting more comfortable with Venables and Jeff Levy, and that team's getting better.
Okay, so first on Nebraska, last year was a good roster, and they just didn't have the schedule to get over the hump. And in particular, when they started losing some of those one-score games, I thought defensively they were obviously, I mean, this is obvious, but they were much better last year. And now they've got some younger guys. Saturday, I think what you saw is just the air get let out of the program. There has been so much tension there. And by the way, I've experienced something like that. So much tension and stress and pressure on everybody. And the kids can feel that, and the players can feel that. And they had played so many games tight. And then all of a sudden, you get in there and it starts going the wrong direction. And it's just like, oh, man, I'm tired. And that's kind of what I felt on Saturday. So from that standpoint, I think they're better than what we saw against Oklahoma. I think that was kind of a perfect storm. Having said that, your point about Oklahoma is astute. That was as good a version of Oklahoma as I can remember seeing in a long time. And I don't want to overstate it because, listen, we've seen some really good versions, right? The Kyler Murray team was really good. The Mayfield team that went to overtime with Georgia in the Rose Bowl, that was a good team. But they were just great on offense, and they were making up for what was a poor defense, and they would play well in spurts on defense. But you could never say that it was sustainable on that side. And what I saw Saturday looked to be sustainable. Now, some will say, like, well, your point about Nebraska means that, like, do we really know? But let's not be so revisionist. Remember now, this Nebraska offense was averaging 36 points a game, and it was the side of the ball that we feel or felt good about going into this game. Casey Thompson threw for 388 yards and 5 touchdowns against Oklahoma last year. So they've got some weapons out there, and I thought Oklahoma's defense played their best game since I've been doing their games in the last 10 years. And that's a scary proposition for the rest of the Big 12 because now you've got a team that looks to be equally as explosive on the offensive side and clearly can play defense much better than they have been.
And you understand this being in the business. I know you watch a ton of tape. I don't watch as much tape as you do. I don't even try to, but I try to watch as much games on television that I can. So I went USC. I've caught some of their games this year, but Fresno State the other night was the first time I've watched them start to finish. They are becoming the elephant in the room to me. They are becoming nobody wants to go ahead and say that they can do it this year, but that team is getting better and better every year. And what Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley have, they seem to be so one-minded right now, and he's able to perform everything that Lincoln wants to do. That looks to be a scary team to me on the national scale.
if you look at their numbers, they're very similar to that 2018 Oklahoma team in terms of what their defense has given up, what their offense is gaining. And that's a scary proposition because I'm with you. And by the way, I said it last week on the million different shows that I have now, but I think USC could go to the playoff this year. And that's not smoke. And I think that's to your point. You look at their schedule and you think to yourself, okay, they have the proper schedule and draw out of the opposite side of their division. And Utah is a team that struggled with a mobile quarterback and a quarterback that could get loose in Anthony Richardson. So that seems to be their kryptonite. That's clearly the best team left on USC's schedule. Notre Dame's not anywhere near what they have been the last couple of years. I don't see any reason why USC can't go out there and win. Now, having said that, it wouldn't shock me if this week they lost to Oregon State because the defense, and I think you would admit to this as well, having watched the game, the defense is not good. And they are very opportunistic. That's the way that they get off the field. But that's not a defense that's just going to line up and stop people. And so at some point, they're going to get caught in a situation like those old Oklahoma teams got caught in where they're going to have to win something 55-48 or something crazy. And so we'll see if they can do it at that point.
Joel Klatt is with us, college football on Fox. You see him on the Big Noon Kickoff each week with Gus and Jenny. He is with us courtesy of mybookie.ag. Don't forget code NEXTROUND when you go to mybookie.ag, and they'll double that initial deposit up to $1,000 when you use code NEXTROUND. Klatt with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. I think you heard as you were coming in, we were all agreeing Georgia looks like the only dominant across the board in every aspect of the game team in America. There is one more that looks that way, and it's Michigan. But I can't tell because they've played nobody.
I know.
But they do look good.
By the way, you're previewing my Wednesday podcast, by the way. One of the questions I'm going to be talking about is it Georgia or the field? Remember when we also always did this with Bama?
Right.
Is it Bama or the field in college football? Well, right now is it Georgia or the field? That's how good, that's how dominant they look. And the step that they've taken, well, first of all, they totally reloaded on defense. I mean, guys, it's ridiculous how fast and physical they are on defense. It just doesn't feel like you can move the ball on them with any sustained consistency. That's number one. And then Kirby has finally evolved, and it didn't come in the form of a 5-star quarterback like we thought it was going to be with a guy like Justin Fields when he first committed to there years ago. It's come in the form of weapons on the outside, namely Bowers, who's an animal. I mean, this guy is a total freak. I love watching that guy play, by the way. I think one of my favorite things to watch in football is a matchup nightmare tight end. And that's what Bowers is. And I love watching him play. But the other part of this is like, and I think I said it on your show a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember. Like Stetson Bennett is playing some ball, fellas. He's no longer just the game manager. We treated him like the house pet of college football for so long and just patted him on the head and said, look, isn't that cute? You're playing with all those talented guys and just manage the game and don't screw it up, honey. And now he's out there making moves and throwing up on the field and juking guys out. And I'm like, hey, man, this guy's got a little dog in him and he's playing great. And because of that, they're scary. And right now, if I had to bet, I would probably take Georgia in a Georgia versus the field conversation.
Yeah.
To your point about Michigan, they've done what they should against those opponents. So let's not give them zero credit.
Not at all.
They've done what they should, but do we really know? And the answer is no.
Yeah,
we're going to find out more.
Yeah, 51, 56, and 59 and points scored. I mean, they're just dominating people. But like you were about to say, we're going to find out more because they got Iowa coming up with that defense and zero offense in a couple of weeks.
Well, and we've got them this week against Maryland at home, and Maryland's 3-0, and that's. I know. Listen, Maryland's not great, but they're better than UConn, Hawaii, and
that is true. It is a step up. I was going to try to sell Iowa.
Oh yeah, Colorado State. Jeez,
Yeah.
Colorado. How about the state of college football in that state?
Not
My
great.
home state.
Not good. By the way, Talia Tungavaloa, that'll be a fun ride for the weekend, man. Buckle up. You got some highs and you got some wildness there, some loop-de-loops. That'll be a fun ride in that game.
Totally. Hopefully Gus doesn't get sick again on the loopy loop.
Yes.
One thing you don't have highs with is Auburn quarterback situation. I don't know. I don't know what you took from that game. I think Penn State is pretty good, especially with Nick Singleton, a guy that you talked about, and really they need to get that guy more touches. He is so explosive, but the Auburn defense gets pushed around. It was a game at halftime. That second half, they just completely get dominated, and they don't have an option at quarterback. I don't know where this thing goes.
I mean, I think we kind of know where this goes, right? I mean, you start looking around, like I don't see him surviving this.
Yeah, I just don't know how bad it
Bryan
gets,
Harsin.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good question. Just like how far down do they go? Auburn's one of these places that you look at their history, especially in the recent history. You talk about like loop-de-loops and highs and lows, man. We've seen that from Auburn, right? They're not a program that's just going to go up and sustain consistency of winning 10 games. I mean, they're up and down. They're national championship caliber, firing coaches, national championship caliber, firing coaches. It's a bit of a wild ride, and it seems to be that way again. Having said that, I took more away from this, and maybe this is the optimist in me, and maybe this is just the fact that I cover them more, but I took more away from Penn State. And the reason being is because the question, singular, about Penn State was whether they were going to fix their run game. It's the reason they collapsed last year. It's the reason that Clifford didn't play well late last year. And if they were going to fix that, then I was going to think that they were going to be able to compete with Michigan and potentially even Ohio State in the Big Ten East. They seem to have fixed it. Because it wasn't just Singleton. Yeah, he went off, and he's doing great, and I agree he needs more touches, but they ran it for over 240 yards in that game as a team. And the best part about them being able to run the ball is that Sean Clifford no longer now has to be the X factor. He can go out there and be the type of quarterback that I think he was created to be, which is a little bit more of a complementary piece. And because of that, the pressure, you can tell, is totally lifted off of him. In particular, after that hit that he took, just like in the face, he just gets crushed.
I was going to ask you,
like,
have you ever been hit that hard?
Oh, have I been hit that hard? I am the original clown with sand in the bottom. Like, just hit.
Glad that was one of the best hits I've ever seen, though.
Yeah, that one had a little bit more theatrics because of where he went. But, listen, you can just go Google it. Klatt gets destroyed by Drew Kelson. I mean, it's lights out time for your boy.
I'm on it.
Oh, yeah, everybody. Google that one. You can Google Klatt gets blown up. There was like a Miami play where John Beeson suplexes me, and Nevin Shapiro paid him a bounty. I learned about that in the Yahoo article, guys. I mean, this is all true stuff. You can go check this out online. You know what pissed me off about the bounty? Not that there was a bounty. I was actually quite proud. It was that my bounty was $500, and Chris Ricks that year from Florida State was $1,000. That's a bunch of crap. All right. Having said that, like let's back up. But just the Penn State point being, Clifford doesn't have to be the guy that then propels them to offensive success. He can be a bit of a complementary piece if they can run the football, and if they can do that, then they're going to be really good. And then all of a sudden, you look up. And this is what, everyone down there is going to be like, Klatt monkey, shut up and get out of here. Then I think that the Big Ten East is the best division in college football, just because they've got three legitimate teams that can potentially call themselves top 10 teams. I don't think you can say that about other divisions.
Yeah, Ohio State and Michigan, and of course Penn State, who is trending in a good direction. Joel is with us. If you had to put that beautiful roaming buffalo painting behind you online, on the line here, would you take Arkansas or Texas A&M this weekend, knowing now what you know about both teams with Max Johnson at quarterback? Because he did seem okay getting the ball to the playmakers.
I mean, did he?
He threw for 140 yards.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Wait, he did?
He got it to the playmakers.
Do you have an Aggie ring?
Yeah, I didn't see any difference.
Please do not ruin the stock of Max Johnson Chrysler Dodge Ram I'm trying to build up right now.
10 of 20, 140 yards and a touchdown, Klatt. The only difference in the game was that Mario Cristobal refuses to score touchdowns. It was all field goals.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like the knock against Cristobal at Oregon, guys, in large part was like game management. And then he comes out there and it's like that's a similar knock that you would give against them in that ball game. I mean, let's face it. A&M was fairly lucky to win that game because they were dominated. They got outgained by over 120 yards. Miami had 27 first downs and didn't score a touchdown. Do you know how difficult that is to do? Like, that's almost impossible, you know? I don't have any faith in Jimbo Fisher's offense. That staff on that side of the ball is going to get cleaned out, very similar to what Scott Frost had to do to his offensive side last year. Because listen, the number's too big. They're gonna go after Jimbo, I don't think, you know, this year. But it's getting bad. Listen, you hire a guy as an offensive mind because he won a championship as a play caller. One of the few, by the way, that has gone out there and actually won a national championship as a play caller. And you bring him in, and the offense has not grown. It hasn't evolved. It's stale. It's stagnant. They can't gain yards. They didn't gain 200 yards against App State. They didn't gain 300 yards against Miami. The silver lining is I love the defense. You know, and A&M played really well on defense, obviously, last week in order to get that win, but they did last year as well. They cannot figure out, and it's mainly the quarterback position. When I broke down that App State game, Haynes King was the reason they lost the game. I hate to say that a big kid, and he's probably a nice kid, but he is. Like, you break it down, he was late on third downs. He's got to see the throws. He doesn't anticipate. The throws are behind players. They can't run after the catch. They should win by 10 if they've got a competent quarterback that can throw on target and on time. And so it's like, what's the matter with Jimbo Fisher? Look at his track record with quarterbacks. It's pedestrian at best. Jameis Winston was clearly the best one, maybe all the way back to Jamarcus, but look at how that ended up. And then Jameis, by the way, regressed in college. His best year was his first year when he wins the Heisman Trophy as a sophomore or redshirt freshman, whatever it was. And they win the national championship, comes back. And granted, there was a lot of issues around him off the field, but he regressed as a quarterback. Jimbo cannot get that position right. I don't get it.
Okay, I can't find the video, but I'm seeing a great still shot of you laid out. It looks like you're dead, laying in the end zone face down.
In the end zone, just face down.
Yeah, and your offensive lineman's above you, like checking your vitals to make sure you're still alive.
Right. Not on my watch.
When was this?
Right. That was against the Texas team that won the national championship over USC in 2005.
Yeah, I had you guys plus some
Vince
points,
Young
and
Texas team.
Y'all gave up 70, right?
Yeah, I didn't play defense.
Nobody did, apparently.
Hey, so what am I Googling again? Gets blown up by
I
who?
see it. This is in the Miami
Kelson
game.
destroys Klatt, and then there's a Klatt gets blown up. There's a Miami one. It's like a full suplex.
Yeah, the Miami
John
one.
Beeson like has me on top of his shoulder and drives me to the ground. Everyone's like, "Why did you jump?" I'm like, "He lifted me up like I was in the WWE."
To Klatt's defense, it's a fumble return for a touchdown, and he's the only Buffalo chasing. So
only one chasing. Thank you.
No, to your defense,
you.
you're at least trying to prevent 6.
Did he get flagged on that?
No.
He should have.
It's a clean hit.
Yeah. If we can find enough of them, we'll get our man Forster to put together a montage for you and send all your big hits together.
I think those are the only two that are really on there, on the line, on the internet. What do they call it? What do the kids call it?
The interwebs. See Klatt, Gus Johnson, and the All-American girl, Jenny Taft.
Taft. There you go.
Yeah.
So you couldn't have filled in for Gus.
I bowed out and let Dunaway do the second half. It is 11 o'clock, Fox 6 locally, the big noon kickoff, Maryland, Michigan, Saturday. Klatt, thank you for the time. Have a great week.
Yeah, you bet, guys. Have a good one.
All right, buddy. See you next Monday. Joel Klatt does join us each Monday on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline, courtesy of MyBookie.ag. MyBookie.ag. Don't forget code next round to get double that deposit bonus up to $1,000 when you sign up at MyBookie.ag.